And we're live. Welcome, everybody. This is the Reality Czars podcast, aka also whatever the hell this is, Bigfoot documentary interviews. Chris Mathieu, you've been on the show before. You were a fucking great. We love you. You are a friend of the show. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. It's a blast every time we talk. I have a good old time. We're going to do the same thing today. I know it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So we are talking about Bigfoot, dude.
Yeah, Bigfoot's my bud, man. He's become quite a good friend of mine, even though I haven't had any, unfortunately, I haven't any encounters, but become super interested in the topic the past few years.
So where are you, Matthew? You're out, Matthew. my nephew, like, is my little brother. His name is Matthew, so I just started. Yeah.
Anyways, it's one of my names.
So you're out in Colorado. Bigfoot. He lives out in Colorado too, doesn't he?
Oh, from what I hear, he lives everywhere, man. I got to get into a story with you later about like Bigfoot, interdimensional Bigfoot's like in your backyard and shit. There's this lady who believes that they're constantly surrounding us, but that's a whole different story. But yeah, Colorado is beautiful out here, man. The wilderness is awesome. I love going hiking in the mountains. Ryder and I actually went hiking a few weeks ago and heard some weird howling that we weren't sure what it was, but I'm not going to say it was a Bigfoot. Although my friend Ken Schwartz, who is also the chief science officer at C60 Purple Power, he said he's had some encounters that include like wood knocks, tree branches breaking, howls, things like gifting. They would leave him little items, and that seems to be this new thing that people are doing with Bigfoots is gifting, is like exchanging little weird items. I would love to try that, but I went to Bailey Outpost the other day. Sasquatch Outpost the other day, which is in Bailey, Colorado. It's this little Bigfoot specialty store out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the woods and in the mountains. And it was awesome, man. They had all kind of cool stuff there, and I got to check out the area. But no Bigfoot sightings or meetings yet, unfortunately.
We just did our big hunt. I guess it was last weekend, and we had a fantastic time. I got to go out hunting with my 15-year-old son and his buddy and my partner. So we were out in the middle of the woods, and I bought a 6-pack of beer. It was like Skunk Ape IPA or something, had to be festive. And yeah.
Right on.
And
yeah, man.
We were looking, man, and we found some pretty interesting stuff. I don't know like what I'm supposed to talk about until the documentary comes out, but like we were trying to do the wood knock. So we were out there trying to communicate with Bigfoot, and we gifted we thought it was a female that we were communicating with telepathically, and we left a summer sausage for her, but she didn't take it.
Oh man,
we left it out that night and she didn't come for it, so it was there in the morning. But.
So you feel like you were possibly psychically maybe connected to something?
All of us were. We were all, and it was funny, man. We'd stop like while we were hiking. We were like deep in the middle of nowhere, dude, like right under Mount Hood, this really beautiful, like crazy forest out there. And then like in the middle of it, we'd stop and we'd refocus, and we'd just be like, all right, we're all here. We're all putting out our intention. We're all putting out like positive intention. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to communicate. We just want to like, talk to you, sort of thing. And it's almost like a little prayer time, like a little meditation session that we were doing. And dude, we were getting like pictures in our heads, and we were getting, and it was funny, man. It was all, we were getting eyes. We kept getting eyes, like they were watching us. And we all saw the same things. It was really crazy, man. It was an interesting experience.
Right on. That makes me think of today's interview. It's actually in the title, Mystical Sasquatch. Nice. The gentleman I interviewed today, Michael Harrell, he's had tons of mystical experiences. We're talking about his spiritual growth and some profound things that had happened. And among one of the things that happened is communication with a Sasquatch being, and, getting information from these beings. And according to the information he supposedly got from these things, that they are here as some sort of spiritual guides. They're not supposed to interfere with humans, but they show up when they have to and maybe help us in certain ways. He was saying like that there's certain like gurus and masters of the past who would have to go out into the wilderness in the middle of nowhere to prove themselves. Either they would go out there, prove themselves, or they'd die. And at this point, the Sasquatch would show up and, you know, show them their spirit animal or guide them through these hard times that they were supposed to be experiencing, you know, going off to become these ascended masters or whatever they're trying to do to prove, you know, what they are spiritually. And Bigfoot, with these being apparently would always intervene and help them through and, you know, show them what they needed to see. I find that very interesting, and it kind of makes me think of, you know, that they are all around in those areas, just kind of watching if they have the ability to, you know, phase in and out. And which, you know, I'm starting to believe the more and more I hear from people who do this deep research that, yeah, these fuckers can get interdimensional. They can become invisible. They can phase out of our vision, whether it's them affecting our perception or they're actually able to change their molecular structure to where they become fucking invisible. I don't know. It's pretty crazy though. And the psychic communication is another thing. I've had quite a few guests lately that talk about that they'll go out into these rural areas, especially if they're like have an intention on maybe finding a Bigfoot or something. They'll get this kind of strange feelings and communications. Either they're not supposed to be there or that they're being watched, and they get this kind of overall nervousness, or some people get this loving feeling. It's very interesting.
Yeah, so I've heard both too. Yeah, and from certain folks that like they'll be out there, and one encounter that from a gentleman that I talked to said once he made eye contact with this Bigfoot, everything in his life changed, and it made that psychic connection between them. And so he says that like he can almost talk to him at any time. And they like give him advice sometimes, or he can ask them questions and they have like very deep metaphysical answers. It's a very interesting thing. And so that is kind of funny. I'd never heard that about like the ascended masters or the folks that were going out and looking for wisdom would run into a Bigfoot and they would get help along the way.
And sometimes they obviously wouldn't even know as a Bigfoot. They'd appear as something else. And apparently he said that these guys are very in close relation to extraterrestrials, to certain types of interdimensional beings, or what you would consider extraterrestrials. And some of these even kind of work together for humanity's spiritual development. It got pretty wild, some of these stories, but you know, I have to consider everything. It was definitely something that that piqued my interest when he was discussing it, especially when you take the fact that these beings usually have a malevolent sense to them, and when you add all the evidence together that we've been finding out about lately, like the psychic and the gifting, they seem to have some sort of benevolent interest in us, and they don't seem to want to harm us in any way. There's very rare stories I hear of Bigfoot where people are being attacked. Although on the other hand, even my guest today said it's the duality in everything. There are good and bad in every types of species of being, and there are evil Bigfoots. You know, there are little clans that don't really like humans and don't want to have anything to do with us and don't want us to be spiritually involved and evolved, and may even, you know, eat us if we get too close. I don't know.
Yeah, that's actually what I heard from this one gentleman. He was talking about the different species of Bigfoot. And, well, one thing that I found really fascinating, so he was communicating with the Bigfoot, and he was actually, like, looking at it through his scope with his rifle, because he was out like, hunting, right? He was in a hunting blind, and it saw him, and that's how they made eye contact. And it was passing, like, a peaceful, loving presence to him. He was saying, like, hey, whatever it was, and he was just talking to it. But he said to the left of it, just maybe a couple yards away, was this other creature that was enormous, this 10-foot tall thing with a head of a fucking, he said it was oh man, what was the dog he described? Anyways, it was a Dogman, man. And so Dogman and Bigfoot were kind of hanging out, and he got this aggressive feeling, and it was talking to him. They were having this telepathic conversation between the three of them, and that the Dogman was like, hey, he's got a gun and he's pointed it at us, and he was telepathically talking to them and Bigfoot, saying, hey, I'm just looking through the scope. My finger's not on the trigger. I'm not here to do you any harm. I'm just using the scope. Because Dogman is like, I will go up there and I will tear you to pieces. And so Bigfoot actually saved him. Bigfoot told him, he was like, no, just chill. His finger's not on the trigger. He's not trying to harm us. He's just looking at us, and I thought that was super fascinating. But he was also telling me that there were different species of Bigfoot, and there's these ones that they call face eaters. And they are about like these 12-foot big, like orange-eyed, crazy ones that do eat people.
Wow. That's terrifying.
Terrifying.
Man. Yeah. Now, the link that I was just discussing earlier with the possible extraterrestrials, I think that if we shifted a lot of the research that we're doing now into extraterrestrials and we shifted it towards like Bigfoot research, I think we would get a lot more information about both. I think we would get a lot further. Yes, there'd be more crossover, and we ain't got to go looking in the sky or outer space or interdimensional. They have been actually sighted in our dimension. We know that they have the ability to cross over. There's been apparently physical evidence of these beings, and apparently there's the more research that's done, there's a lot of connection to what's going on with the ET and UFO phenomenon. So I think if we kind of shifted a little bit, maybe focus more on this stuff or take some of those brilliant researchers that are looking into the ET phenomenon and bring them over to the Bigfoot side and see what'll happen. That's the problem with, people's egos in these communities. They get too far deep into, a belief system or something, and they don't want to kind of cross it over and look at the other side of things. Yeah. And I think we'd get a lot further in all this research if we did that.
So speaking of not looking to the sky for Bigfoot, or UFOs, what I thought was fascinating. I was talking to another friend of ours, actually, a mutual friend of ours, Jim Bob Ovalshorts. Me and him were just discussing this, actually, and he says that, like, if you look at a map, so we were discussing this, so like missing persons map, like where there's heavily missing people, then you also put down a map of where the deep underground cave systems are. It like correlates exactly. Like, it's pretty fascinating. And he says that if you throw on a Bigfoot sighting map on top of there as well, there's huge correlations. And so that almost leads to maybe them being a physical creature and maybe be living inside the earth.
Yes. I love that theory. Yeah, I love that theory too. There's so many of these things, cryptid-like creatures that have been associated with coming in and out of the ground. The Hopi Indians recounted the ant people that helped them during tragic times and cataclysms. And who knows what ant person is really describing. But I think that there's all sorts of intelligences and creatures and entities that we can't perceive that are probably in these like underground type of realities where it's not necessarily our vibration or our reality or something. If you dig underground, you'll be able to see it. I think it's not only is it underground, but it's also in a different frequency or perception. And I think there are places all over the planet like this. I think there are places inside mountains like this. I think that there are places in the woods like this. I think that's where a lot of fairy lore comes from. I think there's just these portals that people can go that have actually probably walked into and never came out. I think I told you the story about the conference I went to where I saw the footage of the people, the investigative team actually walking into a portal. Did I tell you that one?
No.
Okay, well, I have to say that. I was at a UFO conference in 2021, and they had a team of investigators that are actually Trey Hudson and his team. They do the Meadow, which is kind of like a Skinwalker Ranch type place.
Well, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. They were showing video of their investigative research, and these guys are no joke. These are former military. They're not trying to pull wool over anybody's eyes.
Is this in Washington?
No, it's in Alabama.
It's in Alabama. Okay.
Yeah, they're not trying to pull wool over anybody's eye. They're not trying to fool anybody. It was legit research. They had legit equipment, and it was badass. Okay, so what happened was they were monitoring this field one evening, and they had infrared cameras, regular cameras, all kind of stuff, monitoring it. Well, all of a sudden, on the equipment shows up what appeared to be a gigantic black cube just in the middle of the meadow. And they send somebody to go out and investigate. They send like 3 or 4 people from their team to go.
Was it on the ground or was it in the air?
It was on the ground, from the ground, about 20 feet up, 20 foot cube, 20 foot by 20 foot cube. Dark, just blackness. that look like a cube. So they start to walk out there and they can't see anything. It's too dark. But they're watching them on the infrared camera. They can see their heat signature. As they get to where this black cube is, they disappear. I think it was 4 people. And I actually talked to those people about what their experience was like in there. They said that the temperature dropped about 10 degrees. The air felt different and denser, and they were running into picker bushes that did not exist in that terrain. They were running into strange, weird bushes and trees that did not exist anywhere in the state. Like they were in a completely different somewhere.
They had upside down.
They had to backtrack, walk around the whole time. All the people monitoring the infrared camera can see just big black cube. That's it. So the whole time they're trying to backtrack, find their way out of this whatever interdimensional cube they get, and all of a sudden they pop out of the other side of the cube, which was like almost 20 feet away. It was the most insane, and I saw that. I saw the footage. I talked to the guys about it. Unfortunately, I think one of the gentlemen developed some kind of cancer after being in it. So it's pretty insane, man. That was one of the most insane things I've ever seen.
Was the cube visible to the naked eye?
Yes.
Okay, because that's almost interesting, and like that would be fascinating if like they could only pick it up on infrared.
Yes.
Well,
what was visible is just this darkness, this blackness in the shape of a cube. That was what they saw.
Fascinating. And so did they just like touched it and entered it?
They just
so there wasn't like a door.
No, they just were kind of blindly walking. All of a sudden they were in it. They just walked in it.
And how far did they walk? Did they feel like it was longer?
Felt like they were walking. Yeah, they felt like it was like a long time. They started to get nervous, and then they backtracked. But they backtracked and came out like forward, like they weren't backtracking, which was insane. Yeah,
that's wild, dude. That's wild. So, I mean, there are those thoughts about Bigfoot being interdimensional and having these, like, because I've heard of like the sightings.
What if Bigfoot can manifest these cubes and just like pop into that next dimension? You know,
that's exactly what I kind of think, man. I mean, that correlates with my theory about Bigfoot, and him just fucking around. Like, I think he's an interdimensional like being. He's like chaotic neutral, and he just pops up. And then that's when those Men in Black have to cover shit up. They have to, they have to clean up the situation.
I want to get into a Men in Black story too with you. But along the same lines of the meadow, they have Bigfoots there. They have what they call white fuzzies, which are these like not quite as big as your traditional Bigfoot, but pretty big, and they have white fuzzy hair, and that's the type of Bigfoot that are manifesting there. But this same guy, Trey Hudson, had an amazing Men in Black encounter, and it's probably the most insane one I've ever heard yet. So they're working at the Meadow doing their kind of high strangeness research, and a lot of people know about it, a lot of government agencies, and so far nobody's questioning them or doing anything, but they're a private research team. Well, one day this lady who's in like this nice pantsuit comes up and knocks on their little research door and just starts asking them strange questions. And she says she knows Trey because she used to go to college with him, and he doesn't remember her. He's like, "No, I don't think I know you." She's like, "Yeah, I was in this class with you," and she knew all this stuff about him. And he's like, "What's going on here?" And the conversation went on, it got weirder and weirder, and she started making less and less sense in the things she was saying, until he asked her to leave, and when she did so, she stood up and proceeded to take down her pants and piss on the floor. And she malfunctioned or something. She didn't know what to do, and she was like, "Okay." She just like left. She backed out, and what was going through his mind is this: she's not human, and this is some weird Men in Black stuff that's not working. Like they were trying to get information from him, but it wasn't working. So she was like malfunctioning or something. That was pretty funny.
Who had to clean that up? Because I don't know what that is. But
right. I said apparently it smelled like piss, but I don't know. You never know.
Whew, some interdimensional goo.
Oh, yeah.
That's fascinating, man. Yeah, the Men in Black are crazy idea, man. And who the heck even knows what they are? Because they talk about those little, like the black-eyed children too. They're like little mini men in black. And yeah, it's all fascinating, dude. And I almost think they could just be clones, or they could be like aliens trying to impersonate a human. Like there's just so many different ideas of what the men in black could be. But
yeah, man, I can't wait till next week. I got Tony Merkel coming on. He's going to break down the Dogman situation for us. He's going to break down all these crazy like underground entities and entities in the woods, because he has apparently found out some insane information that he's making his documentary about. So looking forward to that. But, you know, apparently this is all connected to like the occult, secret societies, fucking aliens. It's just all connected to the most high strange shit. And when most people start looking into it and realize that all these things are connected, they check out. They're like, no, I'm not going to go that deep, because this is just, you know, the deeper you go, the less sense it makes. It gets weirder and weirder.
that's super fascinating, man. So do you think how does Bigfoot tie into the occult? Do you think that these people are like,
they got Bigfoot worshipers? They got
they
got people that claim that they go out and hang out with like Bigfoot, like these clandestine groups that actually communicate and know what's up with Bigfoot and go hang out with them, and they don't tell anybody about it. It's like Bigfoot secret societies, but they actually interact with fucking Bigfoot. There is crazy shit. And like, there's supposed to be rituals involved that you can open a door to Bigfoot, and you can astrally project and have a Bigfoot fucking heal you. And dude, like the people I've been talking to about some of the weirder shit with Bigfoot, apparently it's super connected to, the super spectrum, which you could say ultra terrestrials, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. Like these guys are not your typical lost hominid. They got some powers.
Yeah, man. I mean, we were also having this whole conversation too about like maybe the Bigfoot being the Nephilim, being the giants. Like, I was talking to Jim Bob, man. He was telling me about if you're familiar with the giants at Solomon Islands.
Yeah.
Are you familiar? Yeah, and the way they're described, and they're big and hairy, and like what the drawings that they do, they look like Bigfoots.
Right. Yes, that's another thing, you know, the theory that these are actually the ancient beings or giants or Nephilim from the past that are still around today. Maybe, you know, I don't know, man. It's super interesting, especially when you end in the fact that there's all this spirituality and magic and all this occult rituals that could be surrounding Bigfoot. That's getting fucking deep.
Fucking A, man. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit of Bigfoot lore, I guess. And let's talk about, do you know any like telltale signs? Like, so like when people are hunting Bigfoot, they look for specific things when they're on his tracks.
I don't know, man. I've always wanted to go on a Bigfoot hunt. One of the really more fascinating things that I've been looking at lately are the structures that supposedly are built by these Bigfoots, the way that they can manipulate like trees and like basically break down a tree to give you a warning, the communication, and not only the gifting, but the effigies that I've heard about. There has been a research team that has made little dolls and stuff out of rocks and sticks. And then the Sasquatch will come back and make like an effigy of the people that were making the dolls, like try and make it look as much like those people as possible. So there's apparently extremely high intelligence involved in this. And if you add in some sort of spiritual nature, you know, what are we dealing with?
Yeah, man. It's all gifting and things like that to these Bigfoots. And yeah, man, it's all so fascinating. I wish I could remember the name. I'm going to have to go back and listen to the interview I did last night. But this one gentleman was having experiences with them, and they told him their real name, like what they're called. And if you address them by this, if you're out there and you are focused and you are, so he says actually, so when you do a Bigfoot hunt, his suggestion is first ask their permission to come onto their property. because he says they can be very like territorial. Like this is their property. You're going on. He says like he goes, what am I going to do if I don't know you and you just walk into my house and you have a gun on your hip? He goes, I'm going to be very aggressive towards you. So he says they know when you're coming, they know your intentions, but you kind of have to talk to them and ask for their permission. And he says you'll get a yes or a no. And he says it'll be very clear, very, very clear. And I'll get you that name for the Bigfoot to ask them, are you this? You know, and you can communicate with them and they'll talk to you. Super fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and I remember in the beginning of the conversation, there was another guest I had previously, it's a couple of years ago. Her name is Dr. Kimberly McGeorge, and she not only works with frequency healing, but she can apparently see into different frequencies and believes that the Sasquatch are more of a phenomenon like fairies or elves, that there are many all around us at all times. And there's not just big Sasquatches, there's little people Sasquatches and little trickster Sasquatches and, you know, things that look like fairies, but all kind of like the same paranormal family, which I find very interesting that they could be, you know, right here in your living room. In fact, I just found one. There he is. There's Bigfoot. No, but that these things could be related to fairies and the fairy lore and gifting. You know, we've heard the same thing with a lot of this in the past about fairies gifting and being taken to different dimensions and coming through portals and having these interactions. And the biggest one is the time manipulation thing, where people will be taken or go missing and they'll be gone for, you know, what's perceived as hours, and they're really gone for days, or they're gone for days is perceived as hours. That goes along with the missing 411 thing. There's been tales of little kids that not sure what really happened, but they were missing for a while, and they say a big bear came and took them to a different place. And, you know, big bear, maybe it's a big Sasquatch. I don't know. But yeah. I do think that I do find it very interesting that it could be connected to these, all types of interdimensional beings, things that we call fairies, elves, goblins, whatever.
Yeah, man, I do find that very, very fascinating. And so one gentleman that I was talking to that has had these experiences, he talks about like they all have different personalities, and he can also tell like the difference between the male and the feminine energy, and he can also tell when there's like a young one. And he says they screw with him sometimes. He says they'll hide my keys like when I'm trying to get ready for work. He says they'll screw things up in the house, and yeah, it's very much like a trickster. It sounded like a trickster spirit, or like maybe what you call like a leprechaun or a fairy. You know, yeah, I think that's very interesting. Yeah, maybe there's some serious crossover there.
There has to be with all this stuff. You can't start looking into one of these categories and not run across the other. When you're talking about ghosts and hauntings, you're going to go to extraterrestrials. When you're talking about ETs, you're going to go to Bigfoot. Just not to get too far off topic, but there's a lot of conversations I've had lately with brilliant researchers that are kind of rethinking what they believe paranormal activity is, and if it indeed is ghosts that we're communicating with at times, or if it's something different, like some sort of extraterrestrial or different types of being that we don't understand. There's a lot of mischief and trickery that goes into a lot of paranormal contact experiences, and people get a lot of strange information from these guys. So, you know, that's another thing to consider. It's like a big mismatched paranormal soup.
Yeah, man. Agreed. Yeah, that is so fascinating. Yeah. So there's all these like different lures and tales from all over the world. And when it comes down to it, man, I think that so many of them are actually connected. You know, I mean, like even with like the occult and religion and all these similar stories about like how our world was created, like it all is just funny to me that we're all telling the same story, but in a different way.
Yeah, I agree, man. And if you were one of these things, would you want to come out and be known? I mean, it seems like they have it pretty well right now. They're not there; it can go invisible. Most of the population thinks that we're crazy for believing in them. Most of the population doesn't believe in them, so they kind of, can pretty much do whatever they want. They just got to worry about, maybe Jim Bob eating too much fermented fruit and phasing in too fast or something, and a farmer seeing him. But overall, they don't seem to bother humans that much. But dogmen is another thing that was brought up. You brought it up earlier, and my guest brought it up earlier today. He says that they are a very close relation with the Bigfoot, or, maybe not directly, but they associate. They
associate us. Yeah, that's exactly what I heard, and that they were almost like a guard. They almost were like, the way he described them. It was almost like they're Bigfoot's pets. They were kind of like their guard dogs, their protectors.
Wow, that is interesting.
I don't know what dog. I mean, I don't know how Dog Man feels about being a pet. I don't know if that offends him or not, but
yeah. Well, I think we're headed into an area of research and an era of research where it's going to be unavoidable that we're going to have to break through some barriers that we haven't crossed before. And we're going to have to crisscross some areas of research that have been crossed before. It's just been since 2019, 2020, that a lot of ufologists have been considering paranormal aspects and spiritual aspects and more about consciousness, and the connection that, maybe these beings aren't coming on tin cans to stick things up our butt, but maybe they're coming from different realms to help us spiritually evolve, whatever you want to call them, angels, extraterrestrials. It's something completely different than we've traditionally thought we were, and we need to go and take a different route of research, which is happening. People are starting to shift that to consciousness research and the connections with that. I think we need to shift again. I think we need to shift from, extraterrestrials coming from different planets at all, and probably the fact that they're here already, they're everywhere, and we can't see them. Our perception cannot see them. I think that is the main area of research that most people who are in paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, that's where we need to start looking, is different frequencies, different spectrums of vision, and that's where the answer is. Have I told you about Nick Hayes and his infrared pictures?
Tell me about it.
Nick Hayes is a wonderful guest. I'm going to have him back on. He takes infrared pictures of the sky, and he's a very talented professional photographer, so he knows what he's doing. He knows what lenses to use to get what, and he discovered interdimensional beings in the sky by using these different infrared lenses, different UV lenses, and combining them. And these pictures are incredible. If you go back to my catalog and just search for Nick Hayes, Nikhayes, Quest for the Invisibles is his book, and the pictures he took are incredible. They have like amoebas in the sky, like mile-long amoebas floating in the sky. They have jellyfish-looking things. They have whale-looking things. All these creatures that are probably around us all the time in the sky, floating around. Massive creatures. Some that look like spaceships, but some that look like jellyfish. It is insane. It's the most insane pictures I've ever seen, and I highly encourage everybody to go check that out. I will be having him back on here in a couple of months. I think he's working on something new, but that is something that it makes you realize that there's so much more to what we can actually see that is out there.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to remember who the heck that was. I was talking with someone, and they were talking about how whatever's above us, like the sky or whatever it is, that space is actually a liquid. And they were talking about these different like squid and octopus creatures that live up there.
Yeah,
it's fascinating as hell, man.
Yeah, dude. Some of these things.
They tell us that there's connections between that. They actually think that maybe octopuses came from outer space.
Oh yeah. Well, some of these things he took, some stop motion photography. You can see that the jellyfish is flapping its things while it's passing along in the sky. The fish is swimming like that. There's like literally an ocean that we can't perceive above us.
Dude, as above, so below? Are we like living in a little bubble?
Man, that's a whole new show. I'm sure Bigfoot has some answers about if our Earth is flat or what the hell, or if we're in a simulation or whatever. I don't know, man. I lean more and more towards that simulation every day, though.
Yeah, same here, man. I can't argue against it. I think it's a very Gnostic idea as well. Like whether or not a creator made this or it was like a computer, that made this, I mean, that could have been the creator, the guy that fucking made the software,
Well, the one I've been hit on lately is somebody created this, but some kind of evil fucking AI force infiltrated it and took over everything, kind of like the Gnostic story of the Demiurge, but it's like an AI,
That's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, because I've had these conversations with folks, and it does seem that there is a malevolent force here. Because, dude, this place is awesome. Like, so where I get off board with the Gnostics, and I'm like, this is the most beautiful prison on Earth. Right? Like, this place is great. You know what I mean? But I do accept that there is just as much. There's a balance, right? Like, the most wonderful experiences you can have. I keep saying that, but yeah, here, because this is our only existence. You can have the most wonderful fucking experiences here, and you can have the worst, dude. Your kid can get cancer and die in front of you. You know what I mean? Like this. So this place is this bizarre balance, and maybe that's the way it has to be. Everything has to have a balance.
Yeah.
I don't know.
For sure. Yeah. I highly recommend everyone go and check out Jason Brashear's work. He was on the other day, and he's got some fascinating theories about our reality and whether we're artificial in some kind of artificial construct. Goes deep, but I would like to think that whatever we're here for, that we created it for ourselves. And if we are hijacked, there is a way to unhijack it. And I think that what may be happening right now is we're kind of realizing we've been hijacked a little bit, and maybe we're trying to unhijack ourselves.
Well, I was having a conversation with another guy last night. You might know him. Do you know Moral Bob? You should know Moral Bob. If you don't. Love Moral Bob. We were talking about this. So like they were talking about like the Tower of Babel, right? So the whole idea that every single person spoke one language, right? We all had one culture. We all communicated, and we were building this tower to heaven. And it says in the Bible that like God was like, if all the people were united, they could take me out, right? That's what it says. He's like, if united, we can't, like, they're unstoppable, like human civilization. And it was this fascinating idea that the Tower of Babel wasn't just one tower, but it was this idea about these like ley lines, right? That like there was these pyramids here, the pyramids here, that they were all connected. And that's kind of what the Tower of Babel was, that we were all actually, as a human race, finally connecting and using one thought, and we were going to like really communicate. And whatever these, like the Anunnaki, or did he tell me what were the Anunnakis? What was the first slave race that they made?
The Adamu?
The Adamu, yeah. So whatever it was, like, that's what the Tower of Babel was. They like shot us down and destroyed it. But I thought that was a fascinating idea, that like we could, if we connected like all the star forts, all the pyramids, all these like ley lines, and we like communicated, that's how, like, maybe that's how we were all communicating as one, like one human race on this earth, like using those powerful places to talk with each other. And like maybe that was the Tower of Babel.
Hey, yeah, no, that's a great thought for sure. I want to bring it back to Bigfoot here for a second. There was something that I forgot to mention earlier. I'm trying to think of the guest name who brought this up. Raven Kiefer. He was telling me about his research into an ancient, I think it was, I don't want to get it wrong. It was Mongolians, I think, but what they did is they had this group of warrior beast people that were much taller than them, that were hairy, and that they used for their front line on battles, and that were probably considered like Sasquatches. So that's very interesting too, that we probably maybe utilized these things in our ancient past, maybe had better relationships or different types of relationships with these kind of entities. If they were like the Nephilim or giants, or, we intermingled with them, why wouldn't they be good warriors for us? I think that's a badass story.
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. That's wild, man. I mean, because they talk about like Gilgamesh, he was like this powerful warrior king, and then he was this big giant, this demigod. And I think that, like, yeah, whatever they are, whatever these Bigfoots are, I don't know if they, maybe they are a demigod. Maybe they are, they have some sort of like bloodline from something more ancient. And I do find that super fascinating. They definitely know these giants.
They definitely got their shit together better than we do. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, dude, it's also fascinating too when you hear about the connection between them and possible UFOs and like whatever these sightings are, and then you find that like some of these, well, if you listen to what's his name? I'm going to screw that up. I can't remember his name, but anyways, if about these like specific like these crafts, right, that they were working on and trying to reverse engineer these like flying objects. You know what I'm talking about? You know who I'm talking about? The most famous dude in the world. What's his name? The UFO researcher.
Oh, Lazar.
Lazar, right? And yeah. But he was talking about that maybe one of these crafts that they had found in an ancient. Like ruins, right? They excavated this like flying object, and it was like thousands of years old. Like, so these things have been around for so long. And like, do you think that Bigfoot might be operating these crafts? Do you think that they are?
Man, that's amazing. If we have Chewbacca getting out of one of these fucking things one day, I wouldn't doubt it. I don't know. I don't doubt anything anymore, and I also, keep an open mind. But I think that it's possible that these guys don't have to get in craft. And I'm not even sure that craft as we think of aliens using them in that sense is even real. I think that most of the craft or UFOs we see at any given time are ours, or for the government, are reverse engineered, or just high technology, advanced technology that we've had for a long time. I don't think these guys need to come here on spaceships. I think that.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that they're from outer space, but that they
See, I'm not even sure that UFOs have anything to do with extraterrestrials anymore, to be honest. I think that UFOs have become a psychological operation used by clandestine groups and three-letter operations to push certain agendas onto people.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that for sure, but I have not seen any real connection at all ever between a UFO and someone's genuine contact experience. Besides, Terry Lovelace was one of the few, and I loved the man, and his story is very profound. And his is one of those stories that keeps me kind of grappling back and forth about this stuff. But, other than that, there's really no evidence that these guys are coming on craft like that, or that they need to. And there's more evidence that all or most of the interactions between us and these beings are in different types of astral realms, not physical at all.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you for the most part. I like it's a fun exploration of thought.
Oh, well, I don't even agree with me 100%. I'm still, like I said, I don't know. Yeah. But, it's something that I consider.
Well, it's just because it made me think of, and actually I talked to Jim Bob about this. We were talking about it, it being connected to Operation High Jump or whatever, and like, so maybe like those Nazi spacecrafts, right, that were out there that were shooting down our soldiers and things like that. So the story goes, or at least that I'm familiar with, that like the Nazis must have like gone there to maybe some form of like Hollow Earth, made some sort of like an alliance with some sort of otherworldly beings, and were given this technology, and then they had these flying crafts. And I was like, man, wouldn't that be so crazy if Bigfoot had an alliance with the Nazis and they were flying saucers down in Hollow Earth in Antarctica?
Dude,
that's where my brain goes. But
they've already shown us all this stuff in Star Wars,
Yeah,
for sure, man. I'd love to see Chewbacca get off a UFO.
Yeah, man. But as you're saying, like, I don't hear so much about, like, so people that like have abduction experiences or like experiences with aliens and stuff, it doesn't seem to really correlate, yeah, with like UFOs, but more with something like an orb, right, where people will see these orbs, and I almost think that's the interdimensional thing, and I almost think they're trying to like steal the real. It's like every time you hear about these UFOs, that has much more to do with our own government. Like our government has these flying saucers, and it's almost like them trying to recreate something, and trying to occult something or trying to like co-opt something. And they are trying to, like, the whole Project Bluebeam thing, or them trying to trick us that like there's going to be some alien invasion. And so they're going to try to make it seem like it's something physical and a threat and that we have to be afraid, instead of maybe something like an interdimensional, like intelligence that are trying to communicate with us and like actually want to send us like maybe something positive and something light and loving, and they're going to try to occult that and try to make it a scary thing.
Yeah. Hey, man, what if it's all the same thing? What if it's just a grand intelligence in the universe that manifests to each individual person differently, whatever they need at that time for their spiritual development or their journey? If they need to see a Bigfoot, it's a Bigfoot. If they need to see a UFO, it's a UFO. If they need to see a fairy, so on and so on and so on. That's, this phenomenon is very personal for many people, and there's a lot of similarities, but there's too many major differences for it to be the same thing. So what is really going on? I have no idea, but it's something that I love looking into. Now, the other thing is that if these things are everywhere, all around us, surrounding us at all times, and we just can't perceive them, and that there are not all of them have our best intention, best outcome in mind. Some of them aren't here for our spiritual development. Is that something we should be concerned about? I don't think so. I think that, if they were going to take advantage of us in any way, they do it in different ways. They do it to people who are in ways weak-minded, or maybe going through addictions, or maybe going through troubling times, but maybe it's not even that. Maybe they're trying to spiritually develop them by attacking them in certain ways. Maybe it's all the same thing, all the same force in the universe that is trying to get us to snap out of this kind of haze matrix that we're in and, realize what's really going on around us.
Yeah, man. And people can take the same exact experience and experience it differently. It's like the same thing if like you and I take a psychedelic and I try to fight the experience and try to control it, I'm going to have a terrible time. Mm-hmm. But if I accept it and I let it, let it explore and speak to me and communicate with me, I'm going to have a great time. So yeah, maybe people that are having negative experiences are just,
they don't understand it probably.
Yeah,
I think
understand
they
it, and it's
what
a
is
scary
happening.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it should be scary. You should have reverence for whatever these things are.
Although I wouldn't go out and try and kill Bigfoot with like AK-47s or anything. That's probably not a good idea. I do have individuals in this community that actually are kind of going to do that stuff. Look, to each your own. If you want to go
be safe,
be safe. I'm just saying, Bigfoot's probably got a big ass dick, and he will not hesitate to fuck you. So, just saying.
And maybe eat your face, man. Yeah, those faces.
Yeah, maybe eat your face too. Fuck, yeah.
So, okay, can you tell me one more time, what was that race that the Anunnaki made? What do they call it?
The Adamu.
The Adamu. So, I was having this conversation with somebody last night, and we were talking about the Adamu, and I'm never going to remember that name. It seriously goes.
I think of Adam, like the first man, Adam, and Adamu.
Adamu. Okay. Maybe that'll help me. Yeah, I need something to. But do you think the Adamu could be Bigfoot? Do you think that there's any chance that they were the first creation, and because they were very intelligent? Right?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing about the race called the Ajiji, that these probably could be, and they're like an ancient race supposedly from Mars. It's all possible, man. These, I think that they are definitely something that can be physical, and I think that they're definitely something that cannot be physical at the same time. I think that they're here for some kind of interaction or growth with us, and I lean towards that it's all kind of the same thing. It's all one entity. It's the simulation. It's the AI interacting with our consciousness and popping a Bigfoot there because we need to see that Bigfoot to get on with our journey or do the right thing or make a right decision. Things happen mysterious ways. Yeah, it happens. Like in my journey, it took me having my contact experiences and meeting my spirit guides to actually light a fire under my ass. And it took 2 other profound experiences after that to really light fires. And I'm sure I'll have more to where I'll be like a fucking rocket coming out of my ass. But yeah, man, I think we all need these little fires lit, and I think that the universe has different ways of doing it. And if you're spiritual or you believe in paranormal stuff or you believe in UFOs and you believe in crazy shit, it'll present itself as some crazy shit because that's the best way to get our attention, I think.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, just that thought though. Adamu. I'm gonna try to remember that. So they were supposedly right. The Anunnaki came here. They were the first race that they created, and they maybe made them too smart or too powerful, right? And so they rebelled, and they were able to kind of like, yeah. Anyways, they had a rebellion, and so they said, "Hey, chill. We're gonna make another race." And we're going to put you in charge. You're going to be in dominion over these people, so us. And so these Adamu are actually in charge of us. And it made me just think, and it was like, man, how many of these people that we see in the media, how many of these people that we see, like our politicians, is Klaus Schwab and Adamu? And when he shapeshifts, is he a Bigfoot? Like,
dude,
like
that's
Klaus
the thing.
Schwab a Bigfoot?
Are these like real, the real, elites and the people that we think are reptilians? Are they really Bigfoot? Yeah. It's all Bigfoot running everything, man. Fuck, we were wrong the whole time. We're going after the reptilians.
The AK-47s are right. We gotta.
Yeah, you better fuck up a Bigfoot. Oh man, that's crazy. I don't know, man. I've had more malevolent Bigfoot stories than I had benevolent, so I don't know. I tend to lean that these guys, whatever they are, I think they mainly want to do their own thing. They might have some kind of ancestral or connection with our consciousness in some way that they probably regularly don't interact. But if we're in need or if we call upon them in certain ways, or they're there to do their job, they do it.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's fascinating stuff. So let's close out. What are some final thoughts on Bigfoot? And you know what's fascinating, man, is like we were trying to. So this was at 9 p.m. this night. There was a big CE4 worldwide. Like everyone was like trying to connect, right? They were trying to do a big CE4. Are you familiar with that? Like the alien. Yeah. So we were doing that. We were doing a CE4 meditation, trying to like call orbs, UFOs, and Bigfoots. And, and I don't want to, spoiler alert, I didn't see any Bigfoot, but
no, man, like I love shit like that. Whenever I hit the road here in a few months, I'm going to be meeting with, wonderful members of my audience. I hope to meet with you, and, let's do some expeditions, dude. Let's get out there and do our own research. Some good spots. Yeah, that's what we need to do is, get into this stuff ourselves. You got the hardcore Bigfoot researchers that'll be like, no, you're doing it wrong. You can't do this. Well, maybe it needs a different approach now because you guys ain't found shit. I mean, you guys have been hunting Bigfoot for a long time. You put on these Travel Channel shows and all we get is big nothing burger from you guys. So it's definitely time to take a different approach. Let's get out there. Let's go kind of, do some CE5 and with Bigfoot. Try and communicate. Try and find out what's the deal. Maybe psychically connect. Gift a Bigfoot today. That's what I would say. Give a gift to a Bigfoot.
Yeah, right. Man. And reach out and try to talk to Bigfoot. I think he can hear you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it's something much larger than we'll ever understand. I think that all this stuff is just basically us reaching out. We reach out to it and it'll reach back. Anything I think you really have a passion for finding in your life, whether if it's supernatural or whatever. If you are true to that and you're doing it in the most healthy and not harming anybody and the best way you can, you'll get there, man. You'll find what you're looking for, or it'll find you for sure.
Awesome, man. Chris, thank you so much. When you come here, dude, for real, we'll find Bigfoot.
Hell yeah,
That'll be
man.
awesome.
I want to spoon with a Bigfoot under a campfire.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you very much. Thank you, sir.
All right. Take it easy.
Later, brother.
Yeah.